friends. It's almost midnight, and you've found your way to the PikeCast. Come along as we careen through the catalog of the most formative horror writer of our young adult days, Christopher Pike. From adult perspectives, we'll revisit these YA books our parents probably would never have let us read had they known what lie inside. We tackle one book per episode in a freewheeling and unbiased chat. So grab your battered paperback, pull the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, climb under your bed covers, and devour a good book with us. Greetings, fellow Pikers, and welcome to the PikeCast. I'm Cooper Beckett, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, Cassie.
Hello.
Today, we're finishing out a trilogy that we began way back in episode 16 by digging into Christopher Pike's 1995 book, Remember Me 3, The Last Story. And we're going to be dissecting it in great detail, spoiling each and every plot twist, so consider yourself warned. If you're enjoying the PikeCast, please leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. And as we warned way back in that episode 16, Grady Hendrix, author of the Final Girl support group, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and Paperbacks from Hell, is fulfilling his destiny by rejoining us to complete this trilogy. So welcome back to the PikeCast, Grady.
I feel like I am ascending with the elders. I now have 12 strands of DNA.
12 whole strands. And I looked that up because, I was confused. It's like, wait a minute, 12? That doesn't sound right. What is the 12 strands of DNA thing? And I looked, and it's a major, woo-woo crystal shop theory that there are 12 strands of DNA and that we have to ascend to get those 12 strands. And
because we only have 2 strands, right?
Yes.
According to science.
According to science.
According to Western medicine. So this is like how we only use 10% of our brain.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's totally that.
Yeah. Okay.
Which, listeners, I want to make this absolutely clear. We use all of our brain. Whether you want to believe or not that we don't use it up to its full potential, that's fine. But we use all of our brain.
That sounds like someone from Orion talking.
Are you immediately branding me the villain?
We're going to rename you Captain Eeeehh.
Well, I also should let you all know, listeners, that Grady himself has branded himself Sherry Cooper in the Zencaster window here that we are using to record tonight's podcast.
But people can call me Sartine if they prefer.
Sartine or Gene Rodriguez or
either one.
Yeah, there's so much here. But before we dig in, let's start with the back of the book. And Cassie, I know you're really just gung ho to read that, aren't you?
I'm so excited.
Well, you can't hide it, so give us a read.
Okay. Sherry Cooper had died once and then returned to Earth as a wanderer, a soul who had been given permission to take the place of another soul in a mature body. Sherry has regained her memory of her previous life. More than that, she has realized her purpose in returning to mortal life, to write stories for young people to help them understand the immortal life that is to follow. Did you just laugh?
I did. It's. I'm sorry. Go on.
Her talent is inspired, her destiny great, and it is not long before Sherry and her books are well known all over the world. Then one special night, a story of incomparable beauty and mystery comes to her, an ancient tale that speaks of the origin of mankind and the purpose of human life. Quickly, almost in a fever, Sherry begins to write it down, sure that it is nothing more than a wonderful fable. But what Sherry doesn't know is that her new book is true. A mystical blueprint that warns of a great danger to humanity from creatures who despise all human beings, but who have a unique and terrifying hatred for wanderers. Creatures who will go to any length to stop Sherry's story from being published. Creatures who wait unseen outside Sherry's door. Dun dun dun.
You know, I say this like nearly every episode, but I am so glad I didn't read that because literally most of that is revealed in the last chapter.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm very curious. I mean, if Sherry's, what was it? If her point of her stories is to help young people understand the immortal life that is to follow, how does First to Die fit into that? Which is the best-selling book, one of the many best-selling books she's written.
well, also that is never stated once in the book itself that is her destiny. Her destiny, according to the book, is to return from the dead to write scary stories and help save the world. Like literally, that is stated in
I
the
don't
book.
want to. I don't want to be that guy, but her destiny is also stated to be to try to help the Hispanic community in the inner
Yes.
cities.
I was going to say that was the one that I remember very clearly
Yes.
being explicitly stated. And I was like, huh, that's weird then that she's erasing this entire other character.
Also,
person.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, can we just throw this out here for the listeners up front? If people don't remember, Sherry Cooper died at the end of Remember Me. And then,
Sherry Cooper died at the beginning of Remember Me.
right,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
at the beginning. Yes, sorry. At the beginning. And then her spirit came back kind of somewhere along the way in Remember Me 2 in the body of Jean Rodriguez, a Hispanic girl. And there was also a thing where Sherry Cooper was swapped from a Hispanic a Latin family, I think, as
Yeah,
a baby
right.
in book one.
She was one of two girls who were born the same time, and there was a baby swap.
Yeah. And I don't, I don't want to offend anyone using the word Hispanic. I know a lot of people say Latin's correct, but throughout this, Christopher Pike uses Hispanic, so I'm going to stick with Pike.
Yeah, and that goes into the problematic section because there are a few comments that just feel really icky.
Yeah. But so in this book, she was shocked, but she was shot in the leg and pushed off a balcony in book 2.
Yes.
And that's when Jean Rodriguez woke up inside the body, or Sherry Cooper woke up inside the body of Jean Rodriguez.
Yeah,
And
because
so
Jean Rodriguez died for real, and she was ushered out to be with the Rashi, I think. And then Sherry just jumped in and woke up Jean, and Peter jumped into Lenny, who was the bad guy in book 2.
Yeah. But he didn't realize that Lenny Mendez didn't realize he was actually Peter Nichols, I think.
Yes, Peter Nichols.
Until he
not Peter McNichol, who is also awesome.
But he didn't remember until he threatened to shoot Jean in the vagina and then actually shot her in the leg.
I forgot about that. Oh my God.
And then she fell. So they both got, but when we start this book, Peter inside of Lenny is paralyzed from the waist down.
Yes.
Which,
gives us a lot of great, horrible, uncomfy paraplegic talk.
Horrible paraplegic talk.
Okay, clearly we are raring to go here, but that was a previously on Remember Me. This book is one of those that has the artwork on the inside rather than on the cover, and I never like those. How do we feel?
Oh, I like a good step back, with the die cut cover revealing it. I always like that.
I like it more when it's like the VC Andrews ones where there's still artwork on the cover, and then there's the cutout, and inside the cover there's more artwork.
Yeah,
because this just kind of gives us. And I noticed later in the Pike releases, the cutout wasn't actually a cutout, and it was just that was the image, was this girl looking through the IK.
Well, to be really boring, it's funny because the die cut covers where you have that cutout, you don't see those anymore because bookstores hate them because they get damaged in shelving a lot, and they get damaged in shipping. And so I wonder if a lot of times when they reprint die cut covers, they just leave out the die cut, like you're saying.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, like why bother? It's a reprint. Who cares?
Okay. So that back, I mean, it does somewhat capture what's inside, but it also just attributes a whole lot of other motivation to the characters that the book doesn't have.
Yeah. Also, so much of this book is a Hollywood story, and that really doesn't mention
Yeah,
Hollywood at
not
all.
once is Hollywood mentioned. Okay, so let's move to the Midnight Club so we can start talking about the book itself. Is Here's I'm going to start with a question from Caddy at this book signing. Is Sherry Cooper a pen name or is it your real name? I noticed you named the heroine of Remember Me Sherry Cannon, which, yes, takes us through the fact that Sherry Cooper, a white character, is in the body of Gene Rodriguez, a person of color, pretending to be Sherry Cooper. And the star of this book, Remember Me, Sherry Cannon. It's a fucking. I mean, she's not like she spends the entire fucking book surprised that people might think she's actually Sherry Cooper, and
Even, yeah.
and doesn't go to any lengths whatsoever to disguise the story of Remember Me, including that the thing that I hated about Remember Me, which was that last chapter where they appeared to the daughter of the cop and spoke in verse to her to get her to stop doing drugs.
That was so much fun, though.
It
I know
worked.
you loved it, and clearly Sherry Cooper loved it enough to include it in this book,
Yeah,
which
re-traumatized the
only,
poor girl.
I mean, can you imagine being the daughter of Garrett, who literally doesn't have a first name in this book? Her name is just Garrett's daughter. Did she
Well, but
have a
also it worked. She's now her father's secretary.
she is, but now she has to live in a world where there are spirits who know exactly what happened to her and wrote him as a book.
Well, that's reality in this book. I mean, it's the real world.
You bring up a good point, Grady. That is the real world.
Garrett's daughter, the blinders have fallen from her eyes.
Yes, and now she sees the truth. That, oh my God. So Sherry is the worst executive producer ever.
Well, I gotta say, can I just interrupt for a quick second?
Sure, yeah,
Because they're making a movie of this book, this bestseller she wrote called
yes.
First to Die, but we're given the impression she has other bestsellers, right?
Well, we're given the impression that everything she writes is a bestseller.
Right, and that she's written, but this was like her big cult one. And I love that it involves kids being attacked by sharks at sea.
Yes.
And so to recreate those scenes in the movie,
They
they've gotten
rent
real
sharks
sharks.
and then have no place to put them.
And they just keep throwing them meat. I mean,
So literally, this book says they have a pool full of sharks. I mean, I don't know if that's hyperbole or do they literally have a saltwater pool with a bunch of poor sharks in it?
well, she and her producer, Henry Weathers, I think, they do
Yeah,
dig a lake and fill it with water and sharks and
they do. Yeah,
actors.
but were those poor sharks living in a pool first?
Yeah, well, yeah, I
Some
don't know.
Hollywood Hills pool?
I do feel like maybe that was the shark. And didn't they say something about they were trying to rent the sharks from Universal or something?
No,
Or were they just
they were trying to rent the stage from
the
Universal
stage? Right, right, right. Okay.
to put the sharks in. To be clear,
Yeah,
they
right, right.
they wanted to put these hungry sharks on a stage in Universal, and like they literally have hungry sharks.
I mean, yeah, it's a real commitment to filmmaking.
I mean, either let's ask this question: does Pike have no idea how movies are made,
Well,
or does he hate how movies are made?
it's interesting because there's a passage in this book where Sherry's talking about Hollywood and she says, Hollywood's a strange place. All the cliches about it are true.
Yes.
Executives like to make deals. They like to do lunch. They do not like to make movies. Movies might bomb. They might get fired. Better to just option stuff, pretend they're going to make it. I got
Yeah.
tired of the scene. She is awfully cynical for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, and I keep forgetting she's only 21. And
She's
this stuff only
21.
happened like 3 years ago.
Right. She's 21 and she is that jaded. I mean, that's hard.
And I totally see like Pike doesn't even try to hide himself in this book. Like,
No.
he clearly is jaded and bitter and pissed that Hollywood optioned a whole bunch of his books early on and then wanted nothing to do with them and made a single TV movie in all that
Oh yeah.
time.
And I really, really want to know, have either of you guys ever come across a book that Pike has signed?
I haven't.
No, but I know one of our listeners has a signed book of his.
Because according to Sherry Cooper, her only inscriptions she uses are enjoy, love and kisses if it's a cute guy, be good, and best wishes. And I really want to see if that's what Pike uses.
I would feel really weird if I got a signature from an author and it just said "be good." And
What about hugs and kisses?
No, that would also be really fucking weird. Like,
Because you'd be like, I'm not a cute guy.
No, yeah, I mean, fair, yeah, but also like, so a lot of the times too, because when I get books from people, sometimes they'll like write like a little draw like a little rainbow or something, which I think is so cute, and so I've got like a little
and so
collection.
you.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, this is actually personalized. But then there are others who just like,
did I
literally
personalize my Osgood books for you?
They're on the shelf over there, so I can look after. But you might have.
I want to know because I think I did, but I would feel bad if I didn't.
But like, I like it; it's cute. But I mean, I also understand like not everybody has the time for that, and sometimes so people will just do like their own name and stuff. But I've never gotten anything so basic. It's just like enjoy, be good. Like, what the heck?
Have a great summer.
Yeah, it's so weird and yearbooky. I don't like it.
Well, there's only 4, and they rotate them apparently.
What are your go-tos, Grady?
I do a different thing for everyone. I
Wow.
really determined that I would never do the same thing. Because like sometimes if I'm signing stock for a store, I'll do the
Sure.
same thing over and over again. Love and kisses. But but no, I do something in my lines. Even if I only have 5 people in a line, it takes hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're one of the good ones, Grady.
Cooper, both of yours have just signatures in it, and Grady, none of the books I have of yours have a signature, so that's even sadder.
Wait, have we ever met?
No, we haven't. So you're off the hook for that one. But to be fair, I haven't met Cooper. And Cooper, you're my co-host. What's up with just a signature, my friend?
I feel like I
Where's
sent
my
you
rainbow?
those very early on, and I also sent you stickers. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I think is there like a little magnet too or something? Like
okay, so it's not terrible here.
And also, Grady, one time I got a box with your book in it, and it came with like little vampire teeth. So that was cool.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was nice. It was from Quirks, so that was really cool. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they do good boxes.
They do.
But I also got to say, one of the nice things about really doing a deeply personalized signature for everyone is when you find one of your books at a used bookstore, you know exactly the asshole
who got rid of it. Yeah.
I once found a book I had signed to the executive director of this book festival, who like had me come down, was like, I'm such a fan. Oh my goodness. Do you think you could like waive your appearance fee? Do you mind? Like, I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then the next year when I came down again, because she was such a fan, I found the book I signed for in the used bookstore.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Well, can I just jump back for a sec? Because Cooper, you were just reading a little something from Caddy, the fan who's at the signing.
Yes.
And one of my favorite quotes from this book is when Caddy looks at Lenny, who is inhabited by the spirit of Peter and who's paralyzed from the waist down. And
is this going to be one of my problematic quotes, I think?
Yeah, and Caddy says something like, "Oh, or is he with you?" And Sherry says, "I understood Caddy's confusion."
I have that line here if you want me to read it.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Like Peter, I understood Caddy's confusion. She saw me as a star, an idol, someone she dreamed of becoming, and here I was with a paraplegic.
I have rarely read a book that so actively and energetically characterizes differently abled people as second-class citizens as Remember Me 3, the last story.
I can give you another one here. Just know, audience, that this was from our problematic section. And the batters are all retarded, which is a terrible line by itself. But the attribution is, I quipped.
Yeah.
I quipped.
I groaned at that, and my boyfriend was like, "What? Like, what happened in the book?" And so I had to read the few lines about like the baseball and stuff before that, and then when I got, because he's like, "What's so bad?" And then I get to it, and he's just like, "Wait, that's so bad! Like, what?" Terrible.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we have a lot to talk about with Sherry, but we can move that to the plot. So let's move on to Jimmy, who's basically not even a character. Like, he's there, he's a character, but he's not really a character.
Wait, Jimmy is
the brother.
He's Sherry's
the brother who's dating Joe, her best friend.
But not real brother.
No. And he's colorblind, right? That was the part.
Yes, he's the colorblind guy.
Okay.
And he's a diabetic.
And yes, and he's a diabetic. That, yes, because his real sister, who was also his lover, tried to murder him in the first book.
Amanda, right? Was that her name?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And he only really exists now to finish Sherry's final book, the last story, as it were, and to have lots of sex with Joe.
3 to 4 times. Was it 3 to 4 times a week or 3 to 4 times a day?
Tons of sex. Let me see. Yeah. It's, according to Jimmy, he and Joe, they were having incredible sex 3 to 4 times a week.
Huh.
According to Joe, they were having incredible sex 3 to 4 times a week. So that's not.
That's less of an exaggeration, than I expect. I thought it was per day.
That actually sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that is pretty. But Sherry doesn't want to know anything about it because he is sort of her brother, but not really. And so she's just judgy about the sex, while she's also dating Peter, who was her first love, but going to fuck the big bad Roger Teller.
But also, if I remember correctly, I think Joe talking about the incredible but also reasonable amount of sex she's having with Jimmy really upsets Peter in the body of Lenny because he can't make love anymore because he's paralyzed.
And Joe seems to rub in his face by being extra sexually flirty with Peter.
Yeah.
So that's Joe. She was petite, as short as she had been in high school, although her hair was now blonde, not brown, courtesy of a professional bleach job. And Joe is an actress now.
Yes, and she just, if I recall correctly, Joe just kind of disappears at a certain point, doesn't she?
Yeah, because she's completely inconsequential to the story.
Yeah.
Like Jimmy. Honestly, like most of the characters in this book, they're completely inconsequential to the story.
I feel like they kept a lot of them just because they were in the first book so much that they were just like, oh, well, if we're finishing it up, we have to have like a couple of these people around.
Well, and can I just give a little shout out for everyone's favorite lesbian from book 2, Carol Dasman, who's now a heroin addict.
Carol Dasman, Gene Rodriguez's best friend, and now my buddy as well, was not doing well. For the last 2 years, she had fought heroin addiction. Recently, she had gotten off the junk only to end up in the hospital with hepatitis, the serious kind. I feel so bad for Carol.
I really do too. Carol was a bright light in Remember Me Too.
Yes, and a book that had no other bright lights, honestly.
Yeah, and so I feel bad. Carol just gives a 1-page dismissal to the hepatitis ward.
Yeah. It's because this book isn't a real sequel.
Now, what does that mean?
It doesn't want to be a sequel. It wants to tell its own story about Hollywood and it doesn't want to be a sequel to Remember Me.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, of course.
Although if it's not a sequel, it has I don't want to talk about the ending yet, but the ending doesn't quite work if it's not a sequel.
Well, true, but let's be honest, very little of it works as a sequel.
Yeah, I was going to say the ending didn't really work for me, period. So I feel like for me, I just...
But see, the ending did have... Well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to Peter. Poor poor Peter, who's
Poor
doing
Lenny.
his yeah, you're right. No, honestly, but isn't Lenny a bad guy? Or was it the influence of something else? I don't remember. Because it was terrible in book 2.
Yeah. Well, Lenny was kind of a jerk, I remember, in book 2, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
And he tried to, he was a jerk who wanted to shoot them, but I don't know. I don't know if I can blame him.
I mean, who doesn't want to shoot Sherry Cooper at this point?
Good point. So Peter, poor Peter is trying his best here to be a good guy, to be that wanderer who's helping the world by coaching a baseball team. Is he coaching a baseball team? Now I feel like I'm misremembering.
Oh, no, he is coaching a baseball team full of developmentally disabled players
Yes,
and
yes.
a pitcher who was born with no eyes named Jacob, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the MVP in this book. Every
I
time
mean,
Jacob appeared, this book went up, like got a plus 20 in my estimation.
yeah, let's talk about Jacob. Peter's blind baseball prodigy, Jacob, who sleeps
Who's
on their
incredibly
sofa.
tall.
Tall, gangly, black, 17-year-old, struck me
Sweet.
as a polite young man.
Yeah, super sweet. He got all excited when she's like, "Do you want?" Because when he catches her cheating on
She
Peter,
takes him to Disney World.
she drags it, but also she bribes him with Coke. She's like, "Don't you want a Coke?"
Yeah,
And he's like,
here's 2 Cokes for you.
"Here's 2 Cokes," and he's so excited. He gets 2 Cokes from
I
the
mean,
can.
she is seriously like the worst middle-aged dad who's cheating on mom.
Absolutely. And even better, she takes him to Disney World and he thinks they've gone on 20 different roller coasters because she just keeps taking him on Space Mountain. And then every time she tells him it's a different roller coaster.
Yes. Which, I
I
mean,
mean,
he's probably enjoying himself.
That doesn't, I mean,
but
okay, that doesn't make any sense though, because there's sounds and there's
Well,
like a voice
and
over the
she
intercom.
also goes out of her way to tell us how long the line is for Space Mountain. So why?
yeah,
Like, if Space
because
Mountain is so difficult to get on, why not, go on the teacups? He might enjoy the teacups.
Little
because I
variety.
will say, for as far as Sherry Cooper is an evolved soul, she really likes being mean to disabled people.
I shouldn't laugh at that, but
No, she
that's
does.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like she's incredible. This book, she has 2 character traits. She's incredibly horny, which is fine,
She is, yeah.
and she loves making fun of disabled people.
Or lying to them in a way they'll
Yeah,
never find out, theoretically.
And it's wild too because she even like remembers back to that one girl she knew in school and she's like, this was like the most impactful part. I saw that when I saw my whole life and blah, blah, blah. Let me just continue being a shitbag, I guess.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Although I like to think, this is my sort of like headcanon, that Jacob knows she's taking him on the same roller coaster, but he plays along because he's such a nice guy and he's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
she likes
totally.
lying
No.
to me, so yeah,
It's
maybe
like
Jacob's.
maybe this will make her happy and she'll give me more Cokes. Okay, so they're making a movie. Throughout all of this, they're making this movie with the sharks. The director barely even has a name or a part, although he has a pregnant wife who does astrological charts and a gay lover who paints billboards
With food coloring.
and a broom.
Oh, his name's Andy or something, right?
Yes, his
Yeah.
name is Andy, but he is like literally the least impactful director I've ever seen as a character in anything ever.
He sounded interesting though, just from his descriptions.
He does
Yeah.
sound interesting. Like if this story was actually about, let's say, making a movie, he would be a more important character. He probably would be involved in casting and wouldn't just, let the producer and executive producer cast herself as a character without at least saying something. Because that's what she does. Sherry, at Roger Teller's insistence, and we're going to talk about Roger in a moment, casts herself in this movie because one of the women who signed up to be involved in a movie about a sinking boat can't swim, which is another Pikeism, and is terrified of the water. What agent lets that happen?
I feel like, though, some of these actors might be saying they can't swim and have a fear of the water because the water is full of
Full of
hungry
hungry
man-eating
sharks.
sharks.
You're right.
I would have a fear of the water too.
Yeah, that's fair.
And any, honestly, any production that buys a pool of sharks before they're even in production and then digs a hole for them.
Well, and I also have to say, are we going to say something about Henry Weathers, my favorite executive producer of all time?
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about Henry Weathers because I have a great description of him. He was a short man with a 6-course belly. Eating was one of his great pleasures in life, and I feel you, my man. He loved hamburgers in particular by the half dozen. 65 years old, he softened his wrinkles with special effects makeup and dyed his hair the color of motor oil, then had the nerve to say it was his natural color.
The nerve.
The nerve. He has a daughter named Rico, who is Sherry's age, who we will never mention again. I mean, I enjoy Henry Weathers as a character.
But also, I love the fact that Sherry tells us how much she likes Henry and then says that his daughter Rico wanted to be in the movie, but her dad said she was too ugly for the part.
Oh, no, I mean, you're right.
Too
I mean,
plain.
he was saying ugly, but he said too plain.
Too plain. I mean, and he lives in a castle.
Yeah.
I mean, I want a movie about Henry Weathers.
And it does rehearsals in his yard.
Oh, right. I forgot that.
Yeah, where and has a casting couch where Roger meets Sherry. Oh no, Andy does love Roger. Honestly, it was as if Roger was born to play Daniel, according to Andy, who's recasting the character from Darren, who was originally in the part. Again, not consequential whatsoever.
No. But
Why
I feel like
was
now...
Darren in that part?
I think they just wanted to introduce Roger,
I mean, that's fine. I guess, no, you're right. That is why he's in the story, to introduce Roger. But if the only reason something's in the story is to produce part of the story, that's not a good reason to have it in the story.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have Jacob.
I think then we wouldn't have a lot of things.
You're true. You're true. You're right. You're right.
But I feel like where you're taking us is a direction that's very dangerous because it sounds like now we have to talk about Roger.
Well, we do, unfortunately. We have to get to Roger, who is both the sexiest man in the world, the best actor in the world. Like his face was perfection molded in paradox, which I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
He appeared both strong and vulnerable. He kisses Sherry while she's running lines with him, which is the least professional thing ever.
But isn't he like, oh, I'm kissing the role, not the actor?
Yes, he said that, yes, but that still doesn't make it more professional. Yeah, he was a babe, no question about it. Wow, that's literally the line.
And doesn't he drive like a black Lamborghini or something?
A Jaguar does.
A Jaguar, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he's incredibly wealthy to take a part in this low budget movie. I think we're supposed to assume it's a low budget movie because they're literally taking the money the investors gave them. And I mean, they say they're going to make 2 movies and it's meant to be a big good thing, but isn't that literally stealing from the investors? Isn't that fraud?
Well, they break down the finances at one point, and I didn't make a note of it, but I think they've got a $10 million budget, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're going to use that to make two $5 million movies. And I will say, even for 1993, I think when this was written,
Yeah,
$5
that's not
million
a lot of
dollars.
money.
Yeah, 1995, $5 million is not a lot of money to make a movie that takes place in the water full of sharks.
Yeah. I mean, it does tell you why they're using real sharks and
Hmm.
not mechanical sharks or special effects. I don't know. I mean, their whole thing is their special effects are okay. It's only a few sharks, but we're going to make it seem like a whole frenzy.
Yeah. I just feel like you're right. One of the things that's very obvious in this book is Pike's books were optioned a lot and never made into movies, and that annoys him because he knows a lot about the optioning process, but very little about the filmmaking process.
That's right. Honestly, this just makes me hope that Netflix invited him to the set so he could hang out with Mike Flanagan while they're making the Midnight Club, because I feel like he deserves that. He deserves to be part of a filmmaking process after all this time. But yeah, he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about here.
But yeah, I hope what you're saying is right because Pike deserves it.
He does. He has brought so much wonderfulness to the world, and I'm willing to forgive the terrible shit he's brought to the world, because he has
Also,
also brought that.
I feel like if you're like me and you don't really know anything about the movie industry, like aside from,
So
watching
did you
movies.
just believe that they
Yeah,
would have a
dude, I
pool
was like,
full?
of course, this is totally fine. Everybody needs sharks in a shark movie for
That's how
sure.
we make shark movies, by just
Yeah,
Yeah.
putting real sharks in it.
totally. Like I've been on the Jaws ride when I was like 3 years old for the first time, and I thought that was a real shark, and I was very convinced. So when I read this book like many years later, I was like, okay, it makes sense they
You're
can't
like,
have it
yeah,
at
right,
Universal,
yeah.
but for a movie, yeah, like of course, totally. Deep Blue Sea, that's like legit, I'm sure.
Lucy, one of the movies that has the least convincing special effects sharks
That
because
is,
it was at the dawn of CGI.
it is so good. It's such a good movie
Oh
because,
no,
It's a really good movie.
I
Yeah.
really enjoy it, but those sharks are not convincing at all.
but they're dangerous, and I like it.
Okay, that's true.
I mean, they needed Pike to be involved with that movie. It would have just been real sharks.
It would have just been real sharks.
All the actors would have been terribly endangered the whole time.
I mean, they do say that the director is insane, like literally mention him being insane multiple times, as well as clearly being bisexual. And we did just gloss over that.
And it's funny because Deep Blue Sea, I'm trying to think of who was in the cast of Deep Blue Sea. It was
LL
like
Cool
It's
J.
LL Cool J.
Yes,
LL Cool J. I
and on
think,
the
isn't it
soundtrack.
like Michael Rappaport? I can't even remember who the female lead is, but I'm like, if any of them had been eaten by a shark, I'm not sure the world would have been a lesser place.
No, you're definitely right there.
One of the things where I feel like we're doing a disservice to the listeners, how do we bring people up to speed with how Starlight Crystal is incorporated into this?
I feel like that's got to wait for the plot. We've got a few more
Okay,
characters first. Yeah,
we're just doing
but no,
characters right now.
you're definitely right because that's important.
Right. Well, also, there's one more character we haven't named, who is the Yogi, whose name eludes me at the moment.
Well, so okay, so there's another other character we haven't named yet, but also the Yogi is referred to as the Yogi so often, but then in quotes referred to as Guruji.
Ah,
But I don't know if that's a title and not a name, because it has guru in it.
right.
Guruji is the light divine that came on earth to bless and enlighten humanity. So it may be a title. Lord Shiva in human form, according to this.
Whoa.
Okay, so that's definitely a title, not a name.
Right. Yeah, well, I think G is just used as like an honorific or something. You know what I mean? Like Dr. G, Guru G or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think definitely he doesn't have a name. He's just Yogi or Guru.
Like sort of like adding son to names of.
Exactly.
Anyway, I want to say that Roger Teller was like liquid mercury when it came to playing the Silver Star. Again, I don't know what that means. But the other character, so let's talk about the Yogi. He looked much like his picture with long flowing black hair and black beard, yet his youth surprised me. He couldn't have been more than 35. It's again Pike just having very young characters. Although he was much smaller than I'd expected, slighter, he moved with incredible grace, carrying flowers in his hands.
And I gotta say, I like the guru in this. He's funny, he's
I do too.
self-deprecating. He's a great guy.
He actually is fairly insightful as well.
Yeah.
And the last character, I didn't mean to make you seem like you were wrong, Grady. The last character is Bob, the actor who is playing the nerdy villain Bob. The guy was much as I had written him, arrogant, overweight, rude. Actor Bob didn't have to stretch for the role. He'd been rehearsing for the part for 20 years, which is shitty to say. His face was pockmarked with acne, his greasy red hair a warning flag for dandruff. And he was big, 6'2", 250 pounds. I guess Bob is the character that Pike just wants to shit on for no real reason.
Yeah, poor Bob.
Who is tricked into being a big bad by Roger.
Yes. But also, I gotta say, like, I appreciate the fact that Bob is just at a certain point, like, to hell with all this. I'm murdering everyone in this cast.
Yeah, it's such a weird twist.
And he's a litter bug.
He is?
He's the one that pushes her in the pool, too, right?
Yeah, and
he does. Personal space, like, he doesn't have any boundaries, and it's rude. I don't like that. If somebody touched me, I'd be upset.
He has a dick.
Yeah, and he likes to throw his empty beer cans on people's lawn.
And then to get back at him, because Sherry's a woman and not a man. This is explicitly stated in the story. She throws cherry Coke at him because she is a woman and not a man.
What would she have thrown if she was a man?
I don't know. A punch?
A regular Coke?
Like Roger, maybe? But yeah, specifically, had I been reincarnated as a man. It's weird. Let's take a commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the plot, as it were. So we'll be right back with more from the PikeCast. Wow, friends. Where else can you get this kind of programming than the PikeCast? Nowhere, that's where. But we're trying to keep the lights on here. If you like what you're hearing and want it to keep happening, jump over to our Patreon at thepikecast.com/Patreon and throw us a few bucks to join our private Discord server. Higher tiers get books, stickers, bookmarks, and even personalized shirts. That's thepikecast.com/Patreon.
Once, Osgood and Frost were the up-and-coming stars of the burgeoning paranormal investigation TV show craze before a hoax put an end to their friendship, partnership, and television careers. Now, over a decade later, Prudence Osgood is a barely functioning alcoholic ghost hunter for hire. Her yearning for mystery and adventure is reignited when she receives a cryptic, untraceable email. She can't resist embarking on an investigation that tugs threads, winding through a sinister series of disappearances, her former partner's family, and a night 20 years ago when a semi blew a yellow light and nearly killed her. Reviewers are calling Osgood Is Gone a masterfully vulnerable and relatable 21st century horror story, and a bourbon-soaked supernatural mystery with sparkling dialogue that sticks the landing on LGBT characters, and main character Prudence Osgood, as tortured as she is clever, broken in all the best ways, and a true heroine for our times. Buy it today at Osgoodasgone as a paperback, ebook, or audiobook narrated by me, JJ Ronvier.
Welcome back to the PikeCast. Now we move into Remember Me and discuss the, quote, plot of this book. I want to start at the book signing at Barnes & Noble in a California mall the size of Tokyo, mainly because I thought they were in Tokyo because I wasn't reading carefully. And so this whole time it's like, oh, they're in Tokyo. Wow, that's out there for a Pike book. And why are they talking about going to something in California? Are they shooting this movie in Tokyo? And so I had to go back and, oh no, the size of Tokyo, not a mall in Tokyo with a Barnes & Noble that literally has 2,000 people at the signing. And I live by a very large mall. Woodfield, it was one of the largest in the country. And I don't think it could comfortably fit 2,000 people in the whole mall. So I don't know how there's a Barnes & Noble with 2,000 people in it for a book signing. And we're supposed to believe they had 1,500 copies of the book because they ran out, leaving 500 fans empty-handed. It just feels like a huge number to me.
Those are Neil Gaiman numbers, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I don't know if it's because I'm a small-time writer and I'm just not seeing this, but yeah, Neil Gaiman, Stephen King probably could draw 2,000 people to a mall to sign it. I mean, he wouldn't go to a mall to sign his books anymore, but still.
And I like how unconcerned, I mean, this is me being a writer nerd, but I like how unconcerned she is that 500 people don't get anything. She's like, oh, well.
I know, right?
You stood in line, tough
and
shit.
she walks down the line signing scraps of paper and napkins.
Yeah, that's something. That's a little something, but yeah.
But it is just, I'm walking away while you're still in line. Watch me walk away from you. I'll sign a few things for a few people, but I'm not going to sit here all night.
That would be so upsetting.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. So what book is she signing?
She is signing Remember Me.
Yeah, because that's
far as I can
release.
Tell. But you're right. It is confusing.
Because at one point a fan asked her, are you going to write a sequel to Remember Me?
Yes, which is a disturbing question to her for more reasons than one. And let's be honest, I don't know what the book she's written at the end of this one is. Do you?
I thought it was Starlight Crystal.
I thought so too, but she visits her mother in it.
Yes.
Because Jimmy specifically talks about the fact that she visits her/their mother.
So
is she writing Remember Me 3?
By that logic, the book she writes at the end has to be Remember Me 3, the last story.
Yes. Although it could be Remember Me 3, the search for Remember Me 2, because she doesn't seem to want to write Remember Me 2.
No, although maybe she
I don't blame her, because it is still the worst book we've ever reviewed. It is the lowest rated Pike book on the PikeCast in 36 episodes.
Wait, that
and
one
I don't
less?
feel that this one is going to make... No, it got less than... it has an average of 1 Pike. Really? And the second lowest is Final Friends #1.
Okay.
Which has 1.16 Pikes because I allowed you to give a 0.99 Pike.
Yeah, that was my low. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right.
But no, it is still the lowest rated thing we've ever read. It's because of my 0, honestly.
Well, I think that we have to assume that the book that the book that Jimmy finishes for her has to be Remember Me 2, which is actually Remember Me 3.
Yes, I think so too, because it has to be this book, this story, not the story we got in Remember Me 2. It's so bad. Okay, so they brought up and reminded me of Sam O'Connor, the troll that lives in the closet and gives ideas. I had thankfully blocked that out.
Oh,
how?
I love him. They mentioned him like 3 times in this book.
I don't know.
So
I'd completely forgotten about it until they mentioned it, and then it's like, oh fuck, right. That's part of the second book.
poor Sam O'Connor, who's stuck in the
In a
closet
wardrobe. Yeah.
with his long distance telephone line, churning out
So he can
books for
call it-
Sherry
yeah, I-
Cooper.
What the-
Wasn't he just like calling like the dirty hotlines and stuff?
Yeah.
I think he prank calls people, and I thought he said he did dating lines.
Yeah, he calls the dating line. It's the creepiest sex stuff in. I know it's not the creepiest sex stuff in a Pike book, but it is fucking creepy.
It was a highlight of book 2 for me, honestly, and I'm so glad they brought him back,
Me too.
or at least like referenced him. If he had made an appearance, that would have just.
Well,
Oh, man.
I mean, Sherry does claim that he is who gives her the ideas, but she confirms with Peter that he is not living in their closet.
Yeah. Well, because also, how does Jimmy have access to Sam? If he's
That's
the one
true.
actually finishing her book, I mean, it makes no sense.
No, you're
Well, 'cause
right.
wasn't it in another one of the books where she was just like a ghost looking over his shoulder, so he was only writing in like a dream state because she was writing through him?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, she looks over his shoulder in this one too. I mean,
Oh, I
like,
think that's what's happening. Like we're just meant to infer that she is controlling him in that, or not controlling really, but like she's inspiring him now to finish the story for her. So it's still her writing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's weird.
Well, no, is it though? Because I got a real feeling of finality at the end. You know,
Me too. Yeah, I felt like this is the end of Sherry Cooper, but she is hanging over him
Yeah,
while he's writing this book.
I thought
Is she?
there feels like
I
there
mean,
should be a
I'm
number
looking
4.
because I know I have that note.
Yeah,
here.
because he looks back like over his shoulder or something like that. He says he was not praying long when a tap on his shoulder made him jump. He opened his eyes and whirled around, but of course the room was empty. Jimmy smiled.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start writing. If I make a mistake, we can always fix it in galleys. So
Yeah.
it's like he's talking to her.
And I will say that I that reassures me, because honestly, if Sherry Cooper wasn't there, I'd be worried that he wouldn't save his work by backing up to the hard drive and then saving it to a floppy disk.
They mentioned that 3 times. I thought that was going to
Fetishistically.
be a plot point.
Yeah, I did too. They mentioned that a lot.
Saves to the computer, backs it up to a floppy. That is good off, but it's not off site. Yeah, you really want to put that floppy in a safety deposit box. Maybe switch it out, like you put another floppy in there,
Yeah.
because they didn't have the cloud back then.
No, just floppy disks.
Just floppy disks. 95, man. Okay, back here. Good God. Here's the thing where it's the Rishi's desire to have me serve as a role model for the Hispanic community.
Mm.
She didn't do a very good job of that.
She's violating it by calling herself Sherry.
She also
And-
says
Yeah.
she barely sees the family, like the mother of Jean.
Yeah. Barely, hardly ever. Yeah. I mean, like, she has erased Jean from existence while still being Jean.
Yeah, but she's also erased. I mean, they've erased Lenny too, because
Yeah.
can't make love. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's true.
I just don't understand, because they're so stuck on that when there are so many other things you can do that he's still, his whole, like his hands and his face and mouth, like everything
Yeah.
on
No,
him
I mean,
is still,
there's ways to have sex.
it's such a bizarre thing that like Pike would like hammer that in so much, so many times, like as such a big plot point and difficulty for them and then there's no mention of anything they could be doing instead, like nothing, like.
I mean, no, I mean, that's definitely the way manhood and sexuality is thought of by most of the world. Let's be honest. If you can't use your penis, if you can't stay hard, you are less of a man. And that's really what this book is telling us about Peter, is he is less of a man who cannot satisfy Sherry because he cannot have penetrative penis in vagina sex. And as a sex educator, I just want to tell him to strap one on. You know?
well,
If you can't stay hard, that's fine. It's fine.
the one thing I do have to say though is, can he control his bowels? Because
What a weird question.
That's the zinger from Roger a little later.
That's true.
And that's the line she has where she's like, aren't we getting a little personal here? Like, all the stuff preceding this was fine, but that is where you think it's too personal.
That's where we draw the line. Yeah.
Bizarre.
Although you mentioning that, Grady, makes me think fondly on the butt frosting.
Emergency butt frosting.
Butt frosting from our first conversation.
Bringing it full circle.
Listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, you really need to go back and listen to the first Remember Me episode and emergency butt frosting. Oh boy. That's something that you just don't hear every day.
I appreciate that. I feel
it is one of my fondest PikeCast memories.
If I've done one thing on this earth, if I've done one thing on this earth besides trying to help the Hispanic community in the inner city somehow.
How are you helping the Hispanic community through your writing, Grady? I want you to think on that.
I'm not. Okay, wait. We got to get back because I'm dying to get to Starlight Crystal.
No, you're right. Okay, so last year, Sherry Cooper made over $3 million. She complains about giving half of it to the government, which is fine. I get it. Taxes suck. She bought a red Jaguar and got 4 speeding tickets and is in danger of losing her license. And then gets pissed off, literally, that Peter doesn't bring in money. Doing his finding rare books for people job and his volunteering as a coach of a baseball team for disabled people. Like, I mean, how on earth does she like she mentions it, so it's clearly a source of conflict in their relationship that he doesn't earn money, and she makes $3 million in a year.
Yeah. It's and also, I got to say, Peter is a guy who deals in rare books, doesn't charge exorbitant prices for doing so.
No, like $10 or $15, it says.
Yeah. And he coaches a baseball team of apparently very talented disabled kids.
Very talented.
Yeah, Sherry is really not looking so great in comparison.
No, all she does is write books to save the world, which still doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
Like, literally nothing she writes in this book, including the fucking Starlight Crystal, which is not the Starlight Crystal book that we know, tells society anything of value.
Nor is the legend, the very confusing legend of the dragon and the young girl's heart, which I still don't quite understand.
That let's be clear, she stops writing the Starlight Crystal to write this legend of the dragon who makes a deal to eat the heart of a little girl who wants happiness, and the little girl gets to kill the dragon because her heart doesn't die?
Her heart doesn't die inside the dragon, and its beating drives the dragon crazy, so it decapitates itself.
Yeah.
And that's what gives Sartine the idea, of how to get her revenge on the Orion. On
but
Captain.
Is that what she already had that idea?
Oh, you're right.
Like that chapter where she decides to do that is before this story of the dragon.
Yeah. Also, I find it really fascinating that in this book for teenagers, it's such a strong advocate of suicide as long as you murder other people at the same time.
Yes. So let's talk about the Starlight Crystal. Cassie, it's one of your favorite books by Pike.
Yeah.
Right?
What's interesting too is this book, I have I had a bunch of folded pages in this book, and when I looked to see why I folded those specific pages, they were all when she's telling the Starlight Crystal story, and I have no idea why I did it.
Is the Starlight Crystal story, the book, anything like this story? Because I don't remember.
No, it's not, but they talk about like the story that her dad is writing, and so that's what they're talking about, like with the aliens and stuff in the Starlight Crystal. So it's like I think this could have existed in the same like universe and stuff, but the story they tell and the characters they tell and like the big bad there and then the captain who's like trying to defeat him, those aren't the same people at all. And it's not
That's
even
what
the
I
same
thought.
situation.
Okay.
No.
And the Starlight Crystal comes out in 96.
Oh,
So literally the year after this fake Starlight Crystal novel that may or may not actually get completed because it doesn't seem to be the book she was writing at the end of this story. Also, it's a very, very short story.
yes.
Not a
Very
novel,
short.
like a
Yeah.
very short story. But then plays Pike's greatest hits. An ancient race of lizard aliens who actually may be the future versions of humans because they went to a far star and then they came back. It's what the fuck is she trying to tell us?
But she also, Captain Sartine of the ship Crystal, also spends her free time creating a staff of crystals that
Yes,
seem to imitate the
the
human
chakras.
chakras, which I find it interesting that Sherry, who has been reincarnated at least once and spent time in another dimension with the Rishi, has no idea
No
what a
idea.
chakra
Yeah.
is or how to meditate.
So much that she asks this yogi, are chakras a real thing or did I just make it up?
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm that yogi, it's like, you fucking white girl. What?
Yeah.
Did I just make up chakras? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know. And also she's like,
Although she's not a white girl, she's Jean Rodriguez. I keep
exactly.
forgetting because the book keeps forgetting also that she's actually this person of color and not Sherry Cooper.
And she doesn't know how to meditate. I mean, she shoots
Yeah,
her
she
astral
doesn't
body
know how.
all over town and she doesn't know how to meditate. It's just so weird to me. I know
No,
this book came out pre-internet, but come on, man.
yeah, it's not hard to. I mean, the 90s were a time when spiritualist shops were showing up all over. So at least you would know about crystals. And if you know about crystals, you're going to know about chakras.
Yeah, there's some, and also, I mean, there's just some gaps in this book. I feel like, do you think Pike was doing that so that kids reading this book would elevate their consciousness by learning along with Sherry what a chakra and a meditation is?
So are you suggesting that Pike is saving the world through teaching teenagers about Eastern mythology?
I mean, he said,
He's
I mean, not saving the world, but he said before, like the reason that so many of his books, because he has like the ones that are like hard thrillers, but then he has ones that have these like themes of
Yeah, that's
new
true.
agey stuff. And he's even specifically said in interviews about like Starlight Crystal and about like what was the See You Later? That was the one we did recently, right? Where
Yeah.
he was like there are themes of like other like a life beyond this life and things outside of the earth, and he says he likes exploring those for the younger audiences because they probably haven't been exposed to that yet. So
And that's great.
it is, and I feel like though a lot of what he's talking about in this book for Sherry as Sherry does not make sense contextually, but he's doing that thing where he's putting himself in a book again, and what he feels applies to him applies to the character, because I think
Yes.
that's what he thinks about his books. Like he thinks he's
Yeah.
doing something great by giving these young people these new ideas about reincarnation and like reptilian civilizations and just, which I
Yeah.
agree is great, but to say you're saving the world or to say anybody's saving the world with that like is a little bit much, and I think that's why it kind of loses it in the book, because it's just like
So let me see if I can sum up what this story is. The Starlight Crystal. We have a spacecraft coming back from deep space. And it seems to be a very large spacecraft with a long time of habitable life on it. While it is coming home, it sees that a race of super intelligent and super mean aliens have attacked not Earth, but the fifth planet. And so it turns around and tries to leave so that some humanity will survive. That's literally it. That's
Well,
this novel, isn't it?
no, they also run away from the evil ship Adharma, uh,
Mm.
and drop nano eggs in a
Yeah.
gas cloud that almost disable Adharma. And then it doesn't quite work. And before they can make the jump to hyperspace, the arrogant Orion, Captain Eeeeh, boards them. At which point,
No, that's after they jump to hyperspace because they're irradiated
oh,
and
right.
marked.
They're irradiated and marked. Jump to hyperspace. Captain Eeeeh follows them. See, it just gets more exciting than I even thought. And then at the last, they have the last experimental nano egg, and Captain Sartine turns to her first officer, Pareen, I think, and is
Yes.
like, and they've been really salty with each other throughout. And he's like, I will die with you because I love you. And she's like, I love you too.
Yeah, they say, did I ever tell you how I feel about you,
The
Sartine?
voices are my favorite.
And Pareen says, no, did I ever? No, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we love each other, but there's no time. It's so weird.
And then Captain Eeeeh boards the deck and he's the bridge and he's sneering, and the nano egg is programmed to explode at the mention of Sartine's daughter, and she's like, "You destroyed the planet with my daughter." The planet's like Malonka or something. You destroyed the planet with my daughter. Do you remember her name? Probably not.
And check out the ghost of my daughter who's here.
Yeah, she's Ciara, and then I assume everything booms, and yeah, and that whole staff that she's building, which nothing ever comes of it, but it's there.
Nothing.
It's a subplot. Yeah, I mean,
she also says she recognizes the evil Orion.
But I think that lends credence to your theory that they are parts of like a also descendants of humanity.
But
although,
see,
do
I
you
don't
think
think
it's a
the book
wanderer
says
situation?
that. I think I picked that up from another Pike
It's because
book.
that's what's in the Starlight Crystal. I'm pretty sure it's like their future people coming back to get them. Like that's a recurring theme in his books that the
it is.
reptilian races, like they're part of us and we're part of them. So the future advanced ones are from like our past, but our future, like because time is timey-wimey.
And they also mentioned the balls of energy /light /aliens that may be angels.
Yes, which was in See You Later.
Which was in See You Later.
Yes.
But they don't seem to stake a very strong claim on what is actually happening in this book, but instead referencing all this other stuff. Because if what we're supposed to believe, and I think this is what we're supposed to believe, you both tell me, is that Roger is one of these advanced aliens because this is a story that actually happened 300,000 years ago, not in the future. And Sherry is somehow busting open the true history of the human race, right?
Yes.
That's what's happening.
And we're led to believe that just like that Sartine is Sherry and Eeeeh
in another
is
life, yes.
Roger. He's a black wanderer because she says you're an Orion and a lousy kisser. But like, yeah.
And let's be honest, calling him a black wanderer, that's
yeah,
accidentally problematic at best.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, assigning more negative characteristics to blackness. But yeah, so Eeeeh is Roger and Sartine is Sherry, but also Eeeeh is the dragon from the fable. Because when she sees him, she's like, I recognize you. And then she remembers him from the story, the fable her grandmother told her, which we assume means that they were also the dragon and the girl who had her heart eaten.
Who gives her heart freely.
Yes.
who supposedly wins because the dragon dies, but loses because she died first.
But then the dragon
she
decapitates
also
himself. Yeah.
didn't have to make a deal with the dragon. Like, the only way to win is not to play, which it was the moral of see you later. She could have lived and not made a deal with the dragon.
But then I think the dragon would have continued on eating other people and doing other things.
But only people who asked him for things. I mean, really, everybody could have just ignored the dragon.
That's true. That's
It's
probably
only
true.
because they were greedy and they wanted the magic dragon to give them stuff that it was like the monkey's paw, like Needful Things. You know, if you never go into Needful Things, the devil can't get you.
But who's to say the dragon would have remained content being ignored? He might have then gone out and tried to like seek out something else and eaten the people and terrorized
you're
them.
right. That could be the story if they told us that was the moral.
Well,
By not saying anything like that, Pike is not making that statement. We're reading a statement in.
you know, I don't like where this conversation is going because it's almost like you're implying. I know you guys haven't said it, but it's like you're both implying that Christopher Pike's cosmic theology isn't completely thought out. and
I would never do that, Grady.
logical.
Never in my life.
I mean,
would
let's
never.
be clear.
But
I
it's
believe
just-
he has cosmic theology. I believe this book is probably the worst representation of it.
No,
I
so
mean, you guys seem to be acting as if this is just stuff he pulls out his ass right before he saves to floppy disk.
I feel
Well,
like he
He
said
does imply that he dreams this stuff and then just writes it down.
his dreams must be so fucking wild.
Yeah, that's true. But a lot of them involve lizard people.
It's true.
A lot of them.
He dreams about a lot of lizard people.
Don't we all?
And honestly, what we're missing here, I mean, we're not missing it, but what we're not talking about is this story here is not actually the story of this book.
No.
It's a story that's being written by a character of this book, while the story of this book is they're making a movie. There's a crazy guy. He decides to feed other people to sharks, including the executive producer.
Yeah.
That's the story of this book.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
And instead, we're being distracted by this other story about aliens and the future, and another story about friends going on a lifeboat and there being a bad guy who wants to, literally just ruin the lives of these other people who were presumably mean to him in high school, because that's also a reoccurring Pike thing.
It's almost though as if like we think we're smarter than Pike, but maybe Remember Me 3, the last story, is 3 stories. The story of Remember Me 3, the story of the Starlight Crystal, and the story of First to Die.
No, the audacity of him to call it the last story and put like 5 fucking stories in this book. What?
Yeah.
Yes,
What
including Magic Fire, which is another book that Christopher Pike wrote, that Sherry Cooper wrote, that comes out in 1999.
I'm going to stick to my theory that he just puts little hints of things because he has.
Oh, he does.
I figure he has like a bunch of notepads or floppy disks or whatever, and on them are all these like partially thought out ideas that he half dreamed and then woke up at 2 a.m. and was like reptiles, aliens, spaceships, and like just typed that all. And then like later on when he's writing something about fucking vampires or teenagers in high school, he's like, how can I fill this out and make it like 250 pages, which is what it needs to be. He's like, I know, I'm going to put a story. One of my characters is a writer. They write a story within the story about spaceships and aliens and reptiles, and it doesn't really have anything to do with it unless you're on a podcast and trying really hard to connect the dots. And then you're good.
And Magic Fire is a book that Sherry did not enjoy writing, but felt compelled to. It's one of her more esoteric works. It deals with interdimensional travel, realities constructed out of words on the paper, demons who appeared as angels, gods who were terribly flawed, and humans born without souls.
Is this what Magic Fire is really about? Because I haven't read that.
I have no idea. We haven't read it yet. It's coming
that's
up.
Wild. How exciting.
I doubt that's what it's really about, because almost never are these little plot balloons actually what the books are about.
But sometimes they're kind of loosely involved.
That's true. That's true. I mean, this book is a lot and also nothing.
I feel like, hasn't Pike said in interviews that he only does a first draft?
He has.
Yeah.
And
So
interestingly, one of our listeners dug up a whole bunch of quotes that he had about earlier books, but it was very much a story of, oh, I had this idea and I threw it out there, and oh, I dreamed this, so I threw it out there. I mean, like, it's very much reinforcing all these ideas we're getting about Pike and all these ideas he's putting into his books, in that he really just comes up with this stuff off the seat of his pants and is surprised by the characters. Like, he is writing seat of his pants, and then suddenly he talked about in the Final Friends trilogy how Jessica started out as a good person but then kept being a bitch. Like, he was as surprised as we were.
I mean, that's one way to do it, right?
That is, and I get it. I've written books like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just interesting because his characters that are clearly representations of him also do these same things. Yeah. Like, we just read one where a character was a software designer who would go to the stores and say, I wrote that, but I can't prove it because it's not my name, because I'm using a pseudonym. And he would also go to bookstores and say, I wrote that, but I can't prove it because it's not my name, because I'm using a pseudonym. It's interesting.
I like how this is the exact opposite of that, where, like, even though she doesn't want people to know that she's using that, like, then they're all, you must be Sherry, the real Sherry.
Sherry's pseudonym is her real self.
But, also, I mean, Pike really lives in a recurring, or is the word, an infinitely recursive hall of mirrors. Because I'm looking at my copy of Remember Me 3, The Last Story, and it's a later reprint, right? This is a reprint, I think, from 2002.
Does it have the shark fin on the cover? Because that's what I have too. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And across the top, it says, New York Times best-selling author, ! Yeah. And twice in this book, Sherry uses the fact that she's a New York Times best-selling author to get, at one point, preferential treatment from the police. Yeah. At another point, to gain entry to a total stranger's house.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm a New York Times best-selling author.
It works.
It's like the audacity of Dr. Bill in Eyes Wide Shut, who just gets into everywhere by showing his license to be a doctor, to practice as a doctor. Like, he uses the fact that he's a doctor. I can do anything I want because I'm a doctor.
Yeah,
it's
really
interesting.
Well, you wonder if Christopher Pike has done this. If he's said, I
am New York Times best-selling author Christopher Pike.
Yeah, can you get me to the front of this line?
Can I get a better room at this? Can I go on Space Mountain first because I'm New York Times best-selling author Christopher Pike?
Yeah, can you not arrest me for killing this person?
I mean, it's very possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible. And knowing the candor, like, Christopher Pike answers questions so rarely, but when he does, he is totally open and honest. Like, he does not hide anything when he does actually answer questions about his stories. So, I mean, you got to admire that. You really, it's very impressive, the candor.
Yeah. I just feel like there's no separation between Pike and his books. He's all in there.
I think so too. He puts himself completely on the page. I just found my quote. A nano egg was only as large as a chicken egg, but contained within it 1 million tons of compressed antimatter, sealed inside a magnetic bottle. So if it's as large as a chicken egg, is it really a nano egg? Or is it just an egg? Is it an antimatter egg? Is it an antimatter bomb? I don't know. It's fascinating. Okay, let's move on here. I have so many. I mean, this plot is all over the place, and we were talking about it before we started recording. This book doesn't know what it wants to be, and so it is a whole bunch of different things, which is fine. But it's a very short book, so it can't actually be any of the things it wants to be because it's so busy being other things. Like, is it a spiritual meditation about a character who's writing about the future or the past and revealing great truths about humanity? Is it a spiritual meditation about someone looking to find their spirituality by finding a guru to replace the guru that they lost, the Rashi, right? Rashi?
Rishi or Rashi?
Rishi, I think. Or is it just about a woman who's an executive on a film who's decided to fuck her lead actor and is making the worst possible choices in the world because she's horny? Because it's also that. Or is it about an author who Hollywood is abusing by just optioning and never making? Or is it about a woman who thinks she can solve anything by taking a poor kid to Disneyland and giving him 2 Cokes?
It's a mystery wrapped inside an enigma stuffed inside a shark.
Yeah, swallowed by a shark. It is, honestly, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
and by being fascinating, it instantly elevates itself over Remember Me Too, which is not fascinating at all.
Well, I gotta say also, so is the Yogi supposed to be a reincarnation of the Rishi or a manifestation of the Rishi?
I thought maybe.
Because I'll give the Yogi points over the Rishi. His banter is good, and the Rishi was a bore.
My favorite part is when he's talking about football.
Oh,
and how he felt so bad because they all wanted to play with this. Here it is. I watched a football game yesterday on TV, a few minutes of it. I kept thinking, why are all these grown men fighting over this ball? What would an intelligent race from another planet think if they were watching this game? Why doesn't someone just give them each a ball so they can relax? It was the first time I saw a football game. It's like, it's so gentle. It's so wise. It's like, well, they clearly just want to play with the ball. Why won't everybody get a ball? And he also talks about, see how much your mind spends on yesterday, last year when you were a child. Yet the past is the past. It is gone, finished. Why waste so much life there? Which is an interesting concept for a book that presumably is about an ancient space alien species and about a woman writing books that will reveal to the world about the past of the human race. But it is gone, finished. Why waste so much life there? That's really why I don't think the book knows what it wants to be.
I mean, I feel like the more seriously we take this book, the better.
Okay.
But I will say, I think also there's a part of Pike that's like, I just want kids to learn about chakras and ancient dragon aliens. And I'm going to wrap it up in all this dazzle that I think kids love, like sex, hot, sweaty oil, sharks, and maybe a space battle.
Yes. All in the same book. I'm going to throw it all in there.
Yeah. Kids like all this stuff. So why can't they? Kids like Jaws, kids like murder, and kids like Star Wars. So I'm going to give them a crappy version of each with some sex. And then it's going to lead to a consciousness awakening.
Yeah.
And he's going to save the world.
And I also feel like there's a message in here that I'm very all behind, which is save your work in at least 2 places.
No, very true. And that word processors were great inventions. They allowed you to cut and paste and delete and replace, but they could not write your books for you.
So for that, you need a troll in the closet.
Yeah,
Good old
There's
Sam.
always someone to write your books for you. You just have to keep looking.
and there's this weird moment where they talk about Roger's past, and that he did a scene where he simulated raping a classmate and
Yes.
stabbing her in the leg before finally befriending her. And Garrett thinks this is awful, but Sherry's like, you don't work in Hollywood. There are rape scenes on primetime TV. That he wrote and performed such a scene is odd, but doesn't mean he's disturbed. It's weird.
But also, there's a weird thing that I just thought of when you said that, because I always thought that was a weird detail. He stabs the girl in the leg. But in Remember Me Too, Gene Rodriguez is shot in the leg.
So maybe he wants to stab her in the vagina.
Yeah, I mean,
but then does in the leg instead.
And we know Pike doesn't plot these things.
No, that's very true.
They just come out of him.
He is a seed of the Panzer.
Yeah.
And then here you go, publishers, publish it. It's like, do you want to take another look at it, Chris? And like, no, it's done. Fuck it.
We'll
do it live. So Bob, let's talk about this prank that Bob wants to play on Sherry that is encouraged by Roger. He's down at the shark set and he needs to talk about tomorrow's scene. So he convinces the executive producer to come to a set he is not supposed to be on with vicious sharks on it. Come down here in the middle of the night. This is not how Hollywood works. At all.
Maybe in 95 this is...
No. And on the way there, Roger is telling her that she can't have a downer ending. Roger, the bad guy, is telling her that the ending cannot be a downer because it won't sell. Roger, the guy who's going to kill her momentarily, is telling her she can't have a downer ending.
It's almost as if Roger's predicting his own demise.
Okay, well, that makes it more interesting, yeah. I don't think that's true, but it makes it more interesting. I mean, like, it is definitely one of those things where, we talk about, wouldn't it be great if this was the actual intent? Because it is so much more interesting if this is the intent. Bob does have a moment where he talks about how, as a best-selling author, Miss Best-Selling Sherry Cooper, you plot your stories so carefully. You sit at your computer and develop the motivation for your characters, what they were like as children, what they suffered as they went to school, why they became criminals when they grew older. But you know nothing. Real criminals don't need motivation. We want to kill someone, we kill them. It's as simple as that. And then Roger says the brilliant line, "Give me that gun, punk."
Well, I do like that Christopher Pike projects onto Sherry Cooper that she is the exact opposite kind of writer that he is. There's a great part earlier also where she's praised for being a master plotter, where Roger's like, well, in First to Die, why is there this extra person in the boat trying to confront Bob? And Sherry's like, hold on, she says, you forgot. Daniel is not even in the lifeboat. He is hanging on to the side. For his plan to even have a chance of working, there must be at least two of them in the lifeboat when Bob arrives. Otherwise, there is no explanation for why only one of them is in the lifeboat. Roger seemed taken aback by my explanation. You understand structure very well. Thank you. I have to go to a lecture tonight. Let's do the scene now, please. I mean, it's so just like, it's this talented writer who knows structure and plotting.
Yeah.
Pike really...
and whose big complaint is there is no reason to explain this thing that I could easily change for any reason whatsoever because I'm the author.
Yeah.
I could make a reason for this if I so chose, but there's no reason because I understand structure.
Exactly. And in a way, I feel like Pike's just saying this is a chaotic universe that I created because I'm the
Yeah,
author and I can do
that's
that.
true. This, so maybe that is the point. This universe is chaos. So is the book.
Yeah. Because this book is sheer chaos.
It is. Like, I mean, listeners who have not read this book, we tell our listeners, read the book before you listen to our episode, because sometimes things won't make sense. We had a guy complain that we shouldn't talk about the whole episode. We should explain what the book is more. It's like, but no, your job as a listener is to read the book.
No one listening to this can make heads or tail of what we're talking about.
This episode especially, there is no cohesion to this episode without the book. And, honestly, there's little cohesion with the book.
Yeah.
But without the book, you have no idea what's going on. You are up a creek. You have no paddle. You have no fucking boat. You're just there with sharks in a pool.
You're in a creek. Yeah.
It's not even a real creek. It's a Hollywood creek with sharks in it.
But the good thing is there's no plain daughters in any of the roles around you. They're all hotties.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone is a hottie. I need to call out this line here. Since my rebirth, I had taken pride in the fact that I was a wanderer, a best-selling writer who could save humanity with my amazing stories.
Beautiful.
So modest. I love it.
I mean, it's.
But why should Pike have to hide his light under a bushel?
Mike, no, you're right. You're right.
Let it
Just
shine.
for our comfort.
So at the end of this book, this poor cop, whose daughter was a druggie, who got off drugs and became, an awesome assistant, who's terrorized by a book that reveals that she was visited by two, like Ebenezer Scrooge was visited by two rhyming devils. And then he goes and he confronts this author that you actually are Sherry. And then Roger knocks him off a fucking balcony.
It's ironic.
I don't know that that's irony. I don't know that even Alanis Morissette would call it irony.
But also leaving his daughter, who's bonded with him again, an orphan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's going to have a tough time.
And especially when she reads this fucking book.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's going to be traumatic because to her, probably her dad just went missing.
Yeah. I mean,
also, doesn't he knock him off the same balcony that Sherry Cooper?
The same balcony. Yeah. They had no reason to go there, really. And then he says, sit on the balcony ledge. And he just pushes him the fuck off. I mean, and there's this great exchange in that. Roger actually, Grady, would you like to play a role with me here?
Oh, of course.
Roger put the gun to Garrett's forehead.
Tell me, what kind of crop does a bad seed bring?
Garrett was fearless.
The usual scum like you.
Roger grinned.
I don't like your answer.
Garrett snorted.
Oh, sorry. Or the
that was the extreme snort. Like Garrett is turning into a warthog.
Oh my God.
Or the alternate reading of that would be, go to hell.
Roger lost his grin.
I may go there, but not today.
Roger shoved Garrett hard in the chest. The man went over the side. Like me, he didn't scream. Like me, he landed hard and on his head. His skull cracked. Blood splattered everywhere. Such a gruesome sight. No human should have to behold it.
And I'm sorry, I'd like to just read the final line here, which is, my eyes closed. God closed both our eyes.
I'm actually really surprised I didn't highlight that line as well.
What?
But thank you for performing that with me. I mean,
thank you.
It takes a special moment there. Like that is truly a special moment that does better with actual, spoken dialogue.
And actual snorts.
And
Yeah.
warthog snorts. Yeah. Wow. I mean,
He didn't
that's
specify what kind of snort,
no,
That's
I
fair. And you went for
I
it.
love
I have a lot
where
of
you went with it. I love where
a
you went
lot of
with it.
range.
A lot
Yeah.
of snorting range. It's very good.
So it's not enough that Garrett gets pushed off this balcony. Then they go and they dig up Sherry's coffin. Only to, like, I felt like there should have been a skeleton moment, shouldn't there?
Mhm.
Like, she should have had to open the coffin, because as it stands, he's like, okay, we dug up this coffin, now get in and I'm gonna bury you on top of the coffin. She should have had to get in the coffin. It would have been horrifying.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
Sherry is Sherry despite being Jean. So here, go lie with yourself in the grave. That's horrifying.
Maybe it was a little too gruesome and they took it out.
But we don't go there. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Instead, Roger hits her on the side of the head with the shovel, shattering the last threads of blood vessels that had kept Gene Rodriguez's brain functioning the past 3
Because
years, according to the
one
text.
thing we haven't mentioned is she suffers from crippling headaches throughout
Oh,
this
yes,
book.
that's true. Taking a lot of Tylenol 3 with codeine, which
Which I think is because she fell on her head and died as Sherry Cooper.
that's true.
Right. And Gene Rodriguez.
And Gene, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
There's lots of head trauma
A lot.
in this trilogy.
So it makes
here.
sense that she would have lasting headaches after.
Yeah. So I need to call attention to the fact that after we learn the end of the Starlight Crystal story and this little dragon story, and really the main part of the story with Sherry Cooper, the lines are literally cool story, both of them, all of them. I am finished. But she's not, because then she goes and visits Sherry Cooper's mother, who, if we recall, is not actually Sherry Cooper's mother.
Right. She's actually the mother of Amanda who tried to kill Jimmy.
Uh-huh.
But may I also say really quickly that
yes,
Roger does die. Did we say that? I don't think we did.
No, we didn't. How does he die? I don't remember.
He
honestly.
dies because love heals Peter / Lenny's spine, and he gets out of his chair and walks up behind Roger, brains him with the shovel, and then Roger falls on top of Sherry, who's bleeding out, and he bleeds out on top of Sherry. And I gotta say, your idea would make this so good, because if it was Sherry bleeding out on top of Sherry with Roger bleeding out on top of Sherry,
oh my God, yeah.
I mean, it's
Roger
Sherry's
bleeding out
all
on
the
top
way
of
down.
Sherry squared.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I mean, there's another great moment here in that part. I coughed and tried to roll over and push myself up to at least die standing on my feet, but such a position was not recommended in Roger Teller's books of games and graves. I mean, there's something beautiful about that line and brilliant and hilarious, but also something just like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? And I find it personally offensive that this book is trying to tell us that all people who have disabilities need to do is find the grace of God and they will be cured of anything. Because poor Jacob has literally no eyes, and he's one of the best humans in the book. But he has no eyes. Why is the grace of God not curing him if it's such an easy thing? Personally offended.
Maybe
Fucking religion.
Maybe it has to do with like just for the book itself. Like maybe it's like more of a commentary on what the person wants, because he even says like, he's like, I was born without my eyes, so I don't really care either way. I don't know what it's like to see, but Peter used to be able to walk. So for him, this is more of like, he feels like this is more of a setback or like something for that he wants more because he knows what he feels like he's missing. Just to be clear, not that I'm saying that I feel that way about people, but
No, I
in the
I
book,
get it. No,
that's
and
yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I agree that's probably the direction that it's intended as. It just feels like I'm lucky enough that the worst I have is chronic pain. And even that, the idea that just the grace of God could fix it, if only I believed hard enough, I find incredibly offensive. Anyway.
I really like the fact that Sherry shows up Jean shows up at Sherry's mom's house
Yes.
and says, I'm a New York Times best-selling writer. Can I come in? And the mom actually says, who are you? And she says, I'm a friend. No,
Yeah.
I'm no one. Can I lie in your daughter's bed? And then dies in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the rudest thing anyone's ever done to someone else. This woman who is reading about her daughter dying has
reading about her dead daughter, gets visited by the author of a book about her dead daughter,
who uses the pen name
of her dead daughter,
who then dies in her dead daughter's bed of a gruesome head wound. I mean, it is raw.
It is dark as fuck, is what it is. And Cassie, I'm sure you were traumatized by the warm milk that is mentioned multiple times in this scene.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
You've got a warm milk thing?
I just don't like
got a milk thing in general.
It's awful, and I just don't like it being shared or talked about, or the mention of it in someone's mouth is just like repugnant to me. And then when it's warm, it's even worse because it shouldn't.
No, I agree.
The only way I don't drink milk, but when I was like a teenager, the only way I could drink milk is if I had ice cubes in it, just because I could not handle it being. And then also, I'm very weird. I cannot put the glass down. Like if the glass touches the table or the countertop, like I'm done with it. I cannot pick it up again to drink more milk because it's now sullied. And then also, nobody else can touch my glass. Nobody can pour the milk. Like, anyways, I'm very particular about milk. And every time Pike mentions milk, I'm pulled out of the book and I'm starting like like that. It's just no good. No good.
So that's the plot of this book.
Believe it or not, that
is literally
the
plot and how it ends. Yep. No, I mean actually it ends with Jimmy theoretically writing the end of Sherry's last book, which seems to be Remember Me 3, but as Grady pointed out, it's actually Remember Me 2 in the world of the book.
Right.
Because Remember Me 2, Jean's story does apparently not deserve to be written by the body of Jean Rodriguez taken over by Sherry Cooper.
Well, because
Jean's
I think the
story is unimportant.
That
one's
Sherry part of Remember Me, I think. I think that's how she writes it, is that like she told the story of when Sherry dies and then investigates her death and then comes back as another person, because the whole point of it is that she's writing about reincarnation. So I think both of the first books are technically part of Remember Me, like as the singular, which is why she's technically, or Jimmy is writing Remember Me 2 at the end of this one. Because they combine the first two books in this book, I think.
So what you're saying is my 5 Pike Remember Me 1 and my 0 Pike Remember Me 2 are combined into one shitty book that Sherry Cooper wrote.
Sherry Cooper, aka Jean Rodriguez, aka Sherry Cooper.
Sherry Cooper, yeah.
Yes.
Wow. That just makes me even sadder, honestly.
Oh, sorry.
that is the case here. What a mess of a book, honestly.
What a mess, but it's so, there's so much going on.
Oh, there is. It's not boring. There is so much happening.
And it's also I feel like because Pike does this by the seat of his pants, there are all these little things that join up that were just crap he threw in without thinking about it, like the leg wound. but
Yeah,
it all works.
that do. Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
I am in awe of I feel like this is basically automatic writing.
Yeah. Totally.
And the nice thing about Pike, and it's a little bit like what happened to Stephen King at a certain point. At a certain point, you've written so many books, they start to get self-referential. And so Stephen
Yeah.
King went all Dark Tower, and Pike just was like, "Buddy, I've been doing this. I've been doing this all along."
Well, and Pike doesn't even pretend they all work together. They just
Oh yeah,
are, you know?
exactly.
So let's move to the eternal enemy, and let's talk about, does Roger work as an enemy as the eternal enemy, the big bad? Does it work at all for you?
I think it works because I think she was talking about like that she could come back, and I think that they don't want people to know that the Wanderers exist because she was supposed to keep that secret in the last book. So I think they like that's the reason that he's like, no, I must kill you. I don't know why he had to massage her with oil first, but I feel like the
I mean,
killing part.
it is a very manipulative bad guy thing. It's like, first I'm going to seduce you and then make you feel even worse when I reveal I'm the bad guy.
Yeah, I like that there was mention too, like ignore the other and like about the temptation and stuff like that. So there were hints that he was bad, but she just ignored them all.
Well, and there's the other thing that they mention about his past is that he was in a play where the main character is pointed out as the bad guy at the beginning, and the idea is for the actor to convince the audience that he's not actually the bad guy, only to reveal he is the bad guy. So it's all about charisma.
And then also he was suspected to have beaten up his old co-star girlfriend person, right? Yeah.
It's so weird. It like just really weird.
It is weird for a Pike villain, I think, a lot of those things put together.
And then he turns out to be a Black Wanderer, as we mentioned, which is the antimatter, the evil leaper, you might say, if you're a Quantum Leap fan. Or the devil, as in that one episode where Al was the devil in Quantum Leap, whose job was to put wrong what Sam put right. Quantum Leap, pretty awesome.
When you said Sam, I thought you were talking about Sam O'Connor again, the little troll from the
No,
closet.
I'm talking about
yeah.
Dr. Sam Beckett.
I take it you like that Sam better.
Yes. Good Lord, yes. Let's move into Thirst. As with many of Pike's books, Thirst has two sections here. One where it's just a ridiculously thirsty character, and that is how Sherry spends much of her time looking at Roger. And then one is about the sex, but I have some stuff where Sherry's just the most inappropriate executive producer ever. He just hit someone for me. It turned me on. Or Roger had such a beautiful jawline, and his body looked as if it had been programmed into a computer to my specifications before being stamped out, which is an interesting, like not printed, stamped out. And then the guy was the star of my movie, I thought. I was making out with him. I had to know more about him. She's just so horny.
So horny. She keeps saying that this is a terrible idea, but I can't not do it. Like, yeah.
And then moving into the sexy part, we have this, God knows I was feeling horny. I hadn't had sex since I'd been in my last body. True, Jean had had a few good times in this body, but those memories only whetted my appetite for more.
As she said, if this was sin, then maybe I belonged in hell.
Yes, I have that whole thing here. I don't remember exactly when I took off my pants, but I do remember when he started kissing me again and how it felt like the most delicious act imaginable in all of creation. His lips, his tongue, his hands, They were what I needed. And then we have, if this was sin, then maybe I belonged in hell. I felt so good. Soon the oil was over both of us. The hot, sweaty oil.
I love the oil.
Is the
Good
oil
Lord.
sweating?
Yeah, the oil is sweaty. But it does accurately portray what happens when you massage with oil. It just gets everywhere. All over both the masseuse and the massagee. So
Yeah.
you better want it.
I do not like being oily. I don't
That
like
does
it.
not surprise me at all.
It's a texture thing. I can't hang with
Yeah.
it. It just, ugh.
Honestly,
Ugh.
that does not surprise me at all. And then we have when someone had it, they had it. And Roger definitely had it. But what is it? Sex? Huh, Sherry? I don't know what that, I mean, that's in italics. So is Sherry asking herself, what is it? Huh, Sherry?
Oh, I thought that was you asking.
No, that's literally in the text.
Oh, shit.
Honestly, this text is so full of bizarre asides. I can't even with it.
Maybe it's just because she's like so many people within herself that she has all these like multiple conversations in her own head.
Honestly, that would be more interesting if like Jean got involved too.
Yeah, then at least she would be a character again.
Yeah, poor Jean. And then we have this other thing. If I wanted to watch something, I usually rented a movie. The remote control had several buttons for pay TV. The bottom one on the left let you watch X-rated features. It's very specific.
Are there buttons on remotes for that?
I mean, I guess when Select-O-Vision was more of a thing in hotels, they'd have specific like buttons for different types of movies, I guess.
That just seems so like, what is it? What is the icon? What does it look like?
Remember, I mean, at this point, hotels didn't have just huge collections of cable. They had that little printout where these are our channels and this is what else you can do on this TV. And so you'd go to the adult movies button.
I imagine the children just picking up their remote while their parents are asleep in bed and hitting that button, and their
Honestly,
parents
literally every time my parents left a hotel room, adult movies. Button.
I meant like a small child doing it, like not realizing what they were doing. I didn't mean.
Oh no, on purpose. On purpose. From like when I was 7 years old and up. On purpose.
Oh my god.
Grady, back me up here. I can't be the only one.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was never brave enough to do that. But I don't think it would ever happen on accident. And I also spent a long time when we had cable, because my mom would keep turning the cable off when she thought we watched too much TV. But trying to see the Playboy channel by like you have your like indicator switch and you'd like ease it over, and sometimes you could get it so it hit this sweet spot where the static would sort of clear and you could watch like Midnight Blue and like it would be staticky and it would roll, but it would be a relatively clear image.
So you had that version. I had both the weird squiggly negative version.
Oh, sure. Seen that. Yeah.
But I also had a box that when you would switch to a pay channel for like half a second, it would give you what's on that channel. And then it would go black.
Never had
so
that.
If you did it fast enough, jumping back and forth between Playboy and the previous channel, you could get like half a second every 2 or 3 seconds. And it was kind of like not really watching stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so just for context to these conversations, my mother, she blocked Cartoon Network from me and my brothers because Cow and Chicken would repeatedly say pork butts and taters, and so me and my brothers would ask for pork butts and taters for dinner like every day just to be dicks. She'd be like, "What do you want for dinners?" And I'd be like, "Pork butts and taters," and she'd get so mad, and then my brothers would copy me because they're younger. So yeah, we had that blocked. And
I mean, let's be fair. You just told me you did it just to be a dick. You deserve to have it blocked.
Okay, but if she had been like, "What do you want for dinner?" and I'm like, "Pork butts and taters," and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna give you pork butts and taters," I'd been like, "Fucking cool! Like, thank you. That's what I saw on TV, and that's what I want." So it was
You wouldn't
partially to be a
actually
dick.
want that, you know. I mean, actually, pork round. No, I mean,
I really
Yeah.
like
you might like it.
potatoes. I
Yeah,
might, yeah.
yeah.
I would probably have torn it up. And then also, what's funny though is my mom was like, "No, this isn't appropriate. You guys can't watch this." But then she bought me my first copy of Flowers in the Attic because she was like, "This has kids on the cover, so this is for kids." Like,
No, yeah, that's common.
there's no
Yeah.
line between my mother and like what's appropriate and not. It's just very strange.
It was a different time in the 90s also
Yeah,
when you were
that's
trying to
fair.
watch porn. You see, the internet, you know, really changed the game.
Yeah. Took
Now
all the fun out of it.
It took the challenge out of it. You know, there was that part in the 90s when you had to, you know, really dig to find porn on the thing. And then in the 80s when you would just, you know, wander behind the railroad tracks in Andersonville, Chicago and hope to find a stash of nudie mags.
Yeah.
It's so specific.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we found them. Often with used condoms on the ground. It was horrifying.
Yeah,
But
that was always weird.
That was what growing up in the 80s was, Cassie.
I was born in '88. I'm sorry.
I'm not criticizing you for not having grown up in the 80s. I'm just telling you it was a different time. There's still nothing like, you know, emergency butt frosting though. I mean, that's I will never have a story as interesting as emergency butt frosting, Grady. I know this. I know.
Well, you know, it's just one of those things, you know. Would it happen today, or was it specific to the 80s? I don't know.
I think it was specific to the time. They would have something today that takes the place of emergency butt frosting.
Yeah, something more effective where your child might not actually
I don't know.
die.
I feel like simple syrup would do it.
Like,
right?
Your child might actually not die as his friends fill his rectum with cake frosting.
Chocolate cake frosting.
And the fact that it's chocolate still makes it
it
the
has
best.
to be.
Right
Yeah.
there.
It only makes sense.
Well, let's move to Die Softly, where we talk moralizing and problematic elements here. I've got some. Do either of you?
Just some?
I didn't mark them, but there were several times that, yeah.
I mean, we've already talked about how just the word Hispanic is thrown around in a lot of iffy ways. A lot of the portrayal of disabled people is very, very hinky, problematic. I have this really passive-aggressive little one here. We went to high school together, I said. Interesting. I would have thought you came from opposite sides of town.
Yeah.
Because Jean is Hispanic and Joe is upper class white girl. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I want to try to help the Hispanic communities in the inner cities somehow. Completely Hispanic community, inner city. One to one there. And then this is the most offensive part here. I saw Sherry's will. She left her Hispanic family a tidy sum as well. Not Jean's family.
Yeah, it's a
her
really
Hispanic
weird choice.
family.
Yeah.
Again, just erasing Jean from this book.
Yeah. But I also do like that at the funeral, Peter's like, I want to try to help the Hispanic community in the inner cities. It's like he's still sticking to the plan, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Because he was trying the whole time. Sherry had to die.
Yeah.
Because she was wasting her gift and clearly believing that her writing was like Messiah-like. And it really wasn't. Do we have any other... I mean, the whole book is vaguely problematic about these specific things.
This whole book is, I would say, has a very unsophisticated view towards a lot of stuff.
Hey, at least we didn't hear about violence in the barrio.
That's true. And poor Carol is a victim of heroin, but it's only drug dealing in the book.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Poor Carol. Poor Carol. And we do have a bi male character. I like it. I'm happy about it. It doesn't shame him either.
Wait, who's that? I missed him.
Andy?
Insane director.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
insane for other reasons.
Yeah, they don't
He's-
shame him for that.
He's polyamorous. He's bi.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Totally. I'm on board. And his lover paints with food coloring and a broom
On billboards.
on billboards. What the fuck even is that?
I mean, that's a lot of food coloring. They go through that stuff fast.
Yeah. Yeah, those little droppers. I mean, you'd need a lot of them. Yeah. Let's move into the season of passage where we talk about the best and worst writing and Pikeisms. Who wants to start? I can.
Yeah, no, please.
Okay. Pikeisms, we've got absentee parents. We've got, honestly, this entire book is a Pikeism. I was surprised we didn't go to McDonald's, but.
Did you mention he eats the hamburgers by like half a dozen at a time?
That's true, which is almost like picking
were...
up a Crave case at White Castle.
Oh, aren't those little?
Well,
is that what he meant when he said that? Because I was
no, I don't think. I think he meant like full size hamburgers.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, well, I've got two good things that I like here. Temptation is like the waves of the ocean, gently but persistently wearing away the shoreline. I like that a lot. And then this exchange about filming a movie about skydiving. The star was suicidal. He jumped out of the plane without a parachute. I made a face. Did he die? Well, he didn't bounce. That's fun. I like that. Then I've got some bad stuff.
Well, on the same note, can I jump in with one here that I really love?
Yes, please.
At one point, Roger says about Peter in his wheelchair, who he refers to as Peter. He does not refer to as Lenny, weirdly enough. He says, look at your friend Peter. If that Yogi told him to jump off a cliff, he'd do it.
Yeah.
Peter can't jump, I said softly. And Sherry does get off a great zinger at one point that I had to read twice when she said something bad was happening. She goes, I wish I had never been reborn.
Oh, that's so good. Well, here's some bad stuff, and one of these I'm using as the header for the episode here. Time to meet the Grim Reaper, Roger said coldly. Wait, Bob cried. Don't. The sharks. They... Yeah! Not since Nicolas Cage versus a mouthful of bees in The Wicker Man has there been a worse exchange, I think. And then, talk about bad dialogue. You were going to edit my script. You couldn't edit the ingredients on a can of dog food. It's not a good comeback at all. And then, I'm glad I never had sex with you. That's one thing I have to be proud of. The snake never got to me.
Is that...
I don't know if it's a lizard thing or a slithering thing or a devil thing or a dick thing. I don't know. It could be any of those things, I think.
I like that there's so many interpretations.
Yeah. But the one is our title for the episode because it's just perfect. Like very rarely can you come across a line of dialogue in a book and feel so strongly about it as I do about that one. Very rarely. Well, let's move into last act, where we give our final thoughts and ratings out of 5 pikes. Grady, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. You're going to give me 2 ratings. One for this book by itself, and then one as your overall thought for the trilogy. Okay. So take it away.
Okay. So I would
do the just this book, and we'll go all around, and then we'll come back for the trilogy.
Okay. So it's a 1 to 5 pikes, right?
1 to 5 pikes, and you can throw something on there if you want. You can make it a little fancy. You can put a still beating heart on one of them, whatever you'd like there.
No, I would give this a solid 3 pikes.
Solid
because
3, okay.
It's not good, but it is an infinite rabbit hole that lets you out into a world of crazy. This is one of the pikiest pikes.
It is.
For better or worse, yeah.
Like Lacey's story is the kingiest king that ever kinged.
Yeah.
But also a really good book. This is among the pikiest of pikes.
And not a good book.
Cassie, I don't want to influence you with me talking about not a good book. What is your thought for it?
I think for this one, this is difficult. Okay, so I'm going to give it 2.5 pikes and a shark fin to make it 3.
To make it 3, okay.
Yeah, and so I do agree that it is like, it's got reincarnation, it's got reptile, space lizards, it's got burgers, like it's got a little bit of everything in there. So it's there's milk, like it's just, whether I like it or not, it's got a lot of different Pike stuff going on. It wasn't as awful as 2. Like this is definitively way better, which is so strange that number 2 would be the worst of the trilogy. I liked it better than that. I don't know if I would rate this lower if 2 didn't happen, because I don't know, because that one was so bad that I'm just like, oh, thank God this one was good. Like, yeah. So, I mean, or thank God it was at least tolerable. But I like the sharks especially, and I'm really glad sharks were in this book, and I wish there were more sharks in Pike books. So, yeah, that's my rating.
Well, I am going to give it 2.5 sharks. No pikes, just sharks. And the reason for the half is because Hollywood mismanages its living creatures, obviously, like Willie from Free Willy. And somehow they managed to get that third shark under a boat motor and just chopped it right in half, because poor sharks. Honestly, I feel bad. I feel the most bad for the sharks in this book.
Wait, you feel the most bad for the sharks, so your rating includes a scenario in which one of them was chopped up by a boat?
Yes, I don't expect anyone to understand.
I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
I maybe don't understand it myself, honestly. But listeners, sharks are good creatures. We like sharks. Don't be afraid.
I'm pretty afraid of sharks, but I think they're...
Well, I mean, you can be afraid of sharks, but don't think of sharks as the big bad.
No, that's definitely Roger.
They're not the big bad. They really have no interest in people until they're taken from their sea habitat and put in a fucking swimming pool and then put in a fake ocean.
Cooper. I think it's a tangent.
I think so, too. You're
Just
right.
A little bit.
You're right. I'll bring it back.
I've seen Jaws. They're dangerous.
Peter Benchley spent the back part of his career trying to make up for that. He did, actually. He really came to love sharks. Anyway. Okay, so 2.5 from me. Now we go to the trilogy. This is going to be tough. I don't know where I'm standing yet, so I'm going to go last again. Grady, where do you stand on this as a trilogy of books?
A 2.
A 2? Okay.
And I say a 2 because the first one's fine. It's not earth-shaking, and there's way too much time spent plotting out the movement of people within that tiny, stupid apartment.
That is very true.
Then but it's not terrible. Mm-hmm. Then you hit the awful, awful second book. And then you get this one that's not good, but it's a fascinating glimpse into the chaotic mind of Christopher Pike's dreams. So I really, I haven't read a lot of Pike trilogies, but I've read so many better Pike books. So I'm giving it a 2 as a trilogy.
Okay. That's fair. I will recommend you just don't read the Final Friends trilogy. Just don't. I mean, unless you have time to sit down with all 3 of them in a row, because then you might get actually some enjoyment out of it. But as independent books, they are just terrible.
I'm just gonna do you the service of telling you to skip it entirely, and I'm sorry to all of our listeners because so many people really love that
Yeah,
series.
that's
But
true.
I feel
There's a
like it's
lot of
good
affection for the trilogy.
because they read it when they were 13, 14, 15 years old, is what I think. I don't
And
think,
all in a row,
yes,
immediately one after the
exactly.
other.
I don't
Yeah.
think anybody who reads it as an adult for the first time will have fun with it.
No.
That's my personal opinion. So
I agree.
there are a lot of other ones I think you could read, like the adult ones. Those are so good.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Cassie. I'm gonna
Okay.
nail you down. What is your Remember Me trilogy rating?
Are we doing flat numbers or are we adding stuff? Are you adding
Whatever you
something?
want. However you want.
I don't want to be the only one. Are you going to add something?
I'll add something.
Okay. So I think I'm going to give it I'm going to give it 2.5 pikes and then a little bit of like orange sand stuff from the first book that they found on the. Do you know what I'm talking about? That little powdery
I
sand
do
stuff.
remember.
That
Yeah,
people were
it is
crawling on the
bizarre
roof.
how much of the first book they
Yes.
just ignore for the rest of the trilogy.
Yes. And so the reason I'm giving it 3 for the whole trilogy is because, first of all, it's not Final Friends, and that trilogy was so bad that I have to give this props for being better
For
than
just
that.
not being that. Yeah.
For at least entertaining me a little bit at different points. Also, I think there's like a whole star in there just for that scene that you hate with the angel and devil, and then also for Sam little troll in the closet.
Wow.
Yeah, for the whole trilogy, there's 1 star for 2 of those things, which are in the worst book.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, and then also I do just think the first book for me.
No, actually, no. The thing I hate, the devil and the angel
That's
thing,
at the
that's
end of the
in
first
book
one.
1.
Yeah, that's at the end. So I think the first book for me, I remember reading that one a lot, and that's one of the ones that stands out to me a lot as like from Pike's books, from being 13 and 14 and reading this. And I remember liking the first Remember Me so much that it makes me a little bit sad that the trilogy didn't stand up for me like as an adult, but I still have a lot of like nostalgia and fondness for it that I don't think I could give it less than 3, especially considering Final Friends. Again, it was just so bad.
Okay. I'm going to talk my way through it because I'm still not sure. I feel like Christopher Pike hated making this a trilogy. Absolutely hated every bit of making this a trilogy. And I feel like after 2, he decided to make something so crazy there's no way he was going to be forced to make a 4. Sort of like Joe Dante throwing everything he could into Gremlins 2 so the studio would have no idea what to do with the Gremlins 3. And I can't tell if it's genius. I don't think it is. Whereas Gremlins 2 is genius. I think this is more just like, I don't want to write a 3rd book, so I'm just going to throw out all these ideas I have for other books. And maybe if someone is interested in some of them, I'll write that. Like writing the Starlight Crystal the next year. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to give it 2.5. And I'm going to make the half the troll.
Yes.
Because if he was better, it would be 3. So because he's terrible and he's small, it's a half. So I think, honestly, if you factored all 3 of my ratings together, that's high. No, actually, it is exactly average because I gave a 0 and a 5. So yes, 2.5 makes sense for the trilogy. So yeah, there we go. It's a mess of a trilogy. An absolute horrendous mess.
I feel like we've arrived a long way from where we started.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been a journey.
It could not have been more different than the first book. It's like, hey, you like that Remember Me? You want more of that? Well, you're not going to fucking get it.
Too damn bad.
Not even close. Grady, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, thank you
having
so
you
much.
here to go through this trilogy.
You know, I
Absolute
feel like the real trilogy were the friends we made along the way. We've got Sam,
100%.
the troll,
Yep.
the sharks. I
Yes.
mean,
Sharks.
there's a lot I will remember from this trilogy. The casual racism.
It's like the there's a Mystery Science Theater quote that I always come back to. It's like, this is what I'll think about when I think about Remember Me. And I will think about it. 100%. We need to have you back for an adult book, I think.
Yeah, I'd love to do one of the adult ones. I
Yeah.
don't know if I got another trilogy in me.
I understand.
I'm
I
gonna-
understand.
Just aged
Same.
me.
Hard same. I don't know if I have another trilogy in me.
Well, I mean, we there is one more trilogy. It's the Elisha trilogy. And
Oh,
then
isn't that the
there's
kids' book?
also just the endless Last Vampire books.
Oh yeah, those go on and on.
They do.
But I think we have not had anyone claim Sati yet. So maybe in 10 episodes you come back and we do Sati.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yay.
we've loved having you here.
No,
And
I never would have done this trilogy on my own. So
So like my intro it was your destiny for us to drag you kicking and screaming through this trilogy.
Hopefully you don't hate us afterward.
no,
Like we had to keep apologizing to Katie for being on during the Final Friends trilogy. It's like we had to assure her we like her. We just didn't like these books. Where can our listeners find more about you and your work? And do you have anything new coming up?
Oh, yes. I just had a book about Kung Fu movies coming to America come out called These Fists Break Bricks.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my next novel is coming out in January called How to Sell a Haunted House. And
Awesome.
All my stupid junk is at gradyhendrix.com.
And you were working on a TV adaptation, weren't you?
Yeah. There's a TV adaptation of my book, Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That's getting ready. And I'm in the middle of doing the screenplay for Horror Store as a feature film. So yeah.
That's
Very
so exciting. That was my first one by you that I read, so I'm really excited.
Me too,
to watch
actually.
Horror Store.
Yeah.
It's the author made some mistakes, so I'm trying to correct them in the screenplay.
Oh my.
He's not as good as structure as Sherry Cooper.
Well, no, Sherry Cooper. Well, I mean, Sherry Cooper is trying to save the world, remember?
Yeah, that's fair.
Exactly.
Yeah. And not all of us authors are actually trying to save the world.
No.
Or succeeding at it. Sherry Cooper's special.
Exactly.
Well, Cassie, where can we find more of you online?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ControlAltCassie. That's CTRLALTCASSIE. And then you can also find my books and art at shopletsgetgalactic.com.
You can find me at coopersbeckett.com and at coopersbeckett on all the social medias. I do warn our listeners, I have a book coming out in my sex educator field. So, if you get a little uncomfy when stuff turns to talking about sex, maybe you mute me for a little while. I'm just looking out for you. Cassie, where can they find our show online?
You can find us on all social media at the PikeCast. And we're also on Patreon at patreon.com/thepikecast. And if you want to share some of your books on social media, you can tag us and use the hashtag #ShowUsYourPike, and we can share it to our stories on Instagram or retweet it on Twitter.
And Grady, again, we have just loved having you here, and we will have you back for Sati. You have no idea that you've already signed the contract to be on that episode. So, it is fait accompli, as they say. And listeners, your homework for next time, our podcast's April Fool's prank, which was funnier when the episode was supposed to launch on April Fool's Day, but through a mistake, it's not. Christopher Pike's entry into the Sweet Valley High-esque cheerleaders series, Getting Even, a book that predates everything we've talked about here, even Slumber Party.
Woo.
And we're just walking into it assuming there's no horror in it. So unlike Final Friends, where we were hoping for horror and there wasn't, this one, we just know there isn't. So maybe we'll like it more.
We'll see.
Until next time, listeners, pleasant dreams.
Woo! Was that too much?
No, that was great.
Okay.
I liked your enthusiasm. You survived the night, friends. You can peek out from under your covers and see the first blues of dawn out the window. Thanks for spending the night with the PikeCast, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Until then, pikers, pleasant dreams. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, Cassie.
Oh.
Sorry, I put a weird pause in there.
Damn it.
And I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, Cassie.
Hello.
Oh man, so what were the final friend book really took y'all down?
They were, yeah. So like how this one like starts off strong and then gets like worse. That one started off like really bad and didn't start getting like tolerable until the third book. And so yeah, it was pretty tough. It was just like there wasn't any like magical cool stuff happening. There was just a lot of high school, like this guy likes this girl and people are mad about it, and it was just weird.
Oh, so no like reincarnation or aliens or anything?
No, it was just basic and like teen murder and like yeah, it was so
No.
yeah, it's not my favorite. I don't think I read that trilogy when I was younger, so having to read it this time like before the episodes, I was like no, but we had like a really nice guest and so that made it really fun and good to talk about, but the books themselves, no, would not recommend.
Yeah, it's funny, I feel like Pike, like I gotta say, I'm enjoy the more of him I read, the more I enjoy the books that go batshit more
Mhm.
than the straight up thrillers.
Yeah,
Have
that's
you
what I
read
like
any
too.
of his adult books?
No, I picked up one at a used bookstore recently, but I did not read it yet. How are they?
You would love The Listeners, and you would love Season of
Oh, that's the one I
Passage.
I
Season of
picked up
Passage is
Listeners.
so good. Listeners is
I
good,
mean,
but Season of Passage is so good in sci-fi, spacey, horror-y. It's so good. It's my favorite.
but what's great is it's like Pike unhinged.
Yes, it's
It's
wild.
all his most visceral and horrifying impulses are allowed to come out in his adult books.
And it gets
Oh, well,
scary. Like there are some really very scary scenes in
Yeah,
them.
they're very true. Like Season of Passage is a legitimately horrifying book.
Yeah, so good.
well, it's funny. Like I want to read it now. I'll move it up on my stack. But Pike Unleashed, I can't even. I shudder to think of what that means.
Pike Unleashed in the best way. Let me
Yes.
put it that way.
Yeah, he doesn't have to cater to teens and their delicate teenage sensibilities.
Yeah. Not
Does he
at
cater?
No, no. But it's like even more so, like more wild. Like you think that he goes to like these limits in these books where you're just like, wow, these were released for like teenagers, and then you read his adult books and you're like, oh shit, like he
There's
really was
one
holding back.
where the villain woman gets a priest to break his vow and have sex with her, and then removes his ribs while he's alive one by one by sticking her hand into his chest.
I think she just gives him a blowjob. I don't think they actually fully have
What?
sex. It's just blowjob to ribs.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's an iconic scene.
But yeah,
that's
she
not
pulls
in one of
she
books,
breaks
though.
his ribs, pulling them out of his chest one by one with her
So
hands.
good. It's excellent.
Whoa.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, no, I'm
Intense
definitely.
Oh, and there's one where there is a fetus that won't die in a jar that gets stomped on and then put in a garbage disposal.
Does it die?
Well, I think it has to at that
Yeah,
point.
I think it gets
the garbage disposal. I mean, we don't know if it actually dies, but I just assume being pureed will kill it.
Yeah.
It's now a smooth.
Well, I
But
never want
stomping on it
to.
doesn't kill it.
I don't want to assume anything,
No, I get it, but as but the stories are also very good in those.
They are.
I mean, every adult book we've read by him have been, solid books too. But
yeah, well, now this makes me excited.
Yeah, you should read them. You should.
You should.
So much fun.